Buenos días, buenas tardes, or buenas noches, and welcome to our final video of the semester. This is our final review. Please remember that every single question that you find in the exam comes directly from this review, so I strongly recommend that you watch this video. It will be very, very helpful for your final grade. And we're going to jump right in because I don't want to keep you too long. We have quite a few topics to cover. So the first one is formal or informal discourse, right? I hope you remember that tú is informal and usted is formal. But here we simply need to choose whether these expressions are formal or informal. So, ¿cómo está? That means how are you? And that is the formal version of the question. So, ¿cómo estás? Means the same thing, but that's the informal version of the question. ¿Cómo te llamas? That is what are you called or what's your name? And you will notice that te, we're addressing a tú. This is the tú form, the informal version. Whereas como se llama, that is for usted, that is the formal version. Lastly, de donde es means where are you from, and it's the formal version of the question, which means that de donde eres is the informal version. Okay? That's formal and informal discourse. Moving on, the numbers in Spanish. They're very simple. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 y 10. The third exercise is one of those fill in the blank exercises in which you have to complete with the correct conjugation of the verb between brackets. But this one, as you can see, is exclusively for ser and tener, the two irregular verbs we studied, right? So, yo me llamo Humberto, yo soy de Colombia, right? The correct version of the verb, the correct form of the verb for yo is soy. Same one here. Yo soy profesor de italiano y español. I am a professor of Italian and Spanish. Now, yo tener dos hijos, that means I have two children, right? Tener means to have. And I hope you remember that the correct form of tener for yo is tengo. Yo tengo dos hijos. Mis hijos ser Agustín y Gregorio. This one might be a little trickier. Mis hijos, I hope you remember the vocab of the family and the possessive pronouns. Mis hijos means my sons, right? So who's the subject here? My sons, right? So it's they. In Spanish it would be ellos. So I need the ellos form of the verb. Mis hijos son Agustín y Gregorio. Now, Agustín tener 8 años. The subject here is Agustín, right? So it would be él, right? Él tiene 8 años. Same thing here with Gregorio. We are changing the name of the subject, but we're still talking about one person, right? One little guy here, specifically because he's 3. So, él, Gregorio, tiene 3 años, right? And lastly, ¿y tú quién ser? I hope you have noticed that we switched. Now we're asking someone directly, calling them tú, right? You. So, ¿tú quién eres? ¿Y cuántos años tú? We need the tener form for tú. ¿Cuántos años tú tienes? Right? Yo me llamo Humberto. My name is Humberto. Yo soy de Colombia. I am from Colombia. Yo soy profesor de italiano y español. I'm an Italian and Spanish professor. Yo tengo dos hijos. I have two sons. Mis hijos son Agustín y Gregorio. My sons are Agustín and Gregorio. Agustín tiene 8 años. Agustín is 8 years old. Remember, in Spanish you have years. It's not something you are, it's something you have. So that means literally Agustín has 8 years. Gregorio tiene 3 años. Gregorio is 3 years old. ¿Y tú quién eres? And you, who are you? ¿Cuántos años tú tienes? How old are you? Or how many years do you have? Right? That was our fill in the blank with ser and tener. Then we have an exercise that is quite similar to one we did during the semester. We have words on the first column, and then we have to complete the two other columns with the indefinite article, the column in the middle, and the definite article from the column on, on the right, right? So palabra, that word is feminine, right? Ends in A. So I need una palabra, feminine singular. And then for the definite, la palabra, right? Still feminine singular. Carro, that's masculine, ends in O. So I need masculine singular. Un carro. El carro. Cuento, that is masculine as well. Masculine singular, right? Just one. So un cuento, el cuento. Cuento means a story, a short story, right? Ojos, that's masculine, but it's plural, right? Unos ojos, los ojos. Marcador, that's a marker, and I hope you remember that it's masculine, right? So, un marcador, el marcador. Lapiceros, that's pens, it's masculine plural. Unos lapiceros, los lapiceros. Tableros, that is masculine, and it's plural, more than one. Whiteboard. So, unos tableros, los tableros. Ventanas, that is feminine. So, unas ventanas, las ventanas. Escritorio is masculine and it's one. Un escritorio, el escritorio. Puerta is feminine and it's one. Una puerta, la puerta. Escuela ends in A, right? That is feminine. Una escuela, la escuela. We're moving on. We're moving on, as you can see, to the family vocab. Hijo, that's a son. It's masculine singular. Un hijo, el hijo. Hija, on the other hand, is feminine singular. Una hija, la hija. Hijos, that is masculine, but now it's plural, right? More than one son. So, unos hijos, los hijos. Hijas, that is feminine, but again, it's more than one. So it's unas hijas, las hijas. Madre, I hope you remember, means mother. So this is feminine, singular. Una madre, la madre. Padre is masculine, singular. It's one, right? One father. So un padre, el padre. Tíos, those are the uncles, masculine, singular. Unos tíos, los tíos. Tías, that's feminine plural. Unas tías, las tías. Sorry, tíos was also plural, right? Unos los, then unas las, and then abuela, that's feminine, and it's one. It's one grandmother. So, una abuela, la abuela, right? Now for adjectives, right? We have to describe several people with 3 adjectives. Remember, the adjectives need to have the same gender of the thing or person that they describe. So first, describe yourself. Since I am a man, I have to use masculine versions of adjectives. I am going to say just, I like to make fun of myself. So I'm going to say I'm feo, I'm ugly, I'm gordo, I'm fat, I'm perezoso, I am lazy. Okay, notice that it said feo, gordo, perezoso, right? I am using the masculine versions of these adjectives. Now, Barack Obama, right? He's definitely not feo, not gordo, not perezoso, right? We need positive adjectives here. Let's say Barack is inteligente, right? Intelligent. Barack is trabajador, really hardworking, right? Barack is flaco. He's skinny actually, right? Notice again, those are masculine versions. Inteligente, trabajador, flaco. And lastly, let's think about Michelle Obama. 3 adjectives for her. Bonita, right? She's pretty. Inteligente. Oh, I have 4. Let's do 4. Bonita, inteligente, trabajadora, right? Hardworking, but the feminine version. And also honesta, honest, right? But the feminine version, honesta, right? So when you describe yourself, remember to use the right gender. Masculine if you're a man, feminine if you're a woman, right? And for Barack and or Michelle, right, just remember to use the correct gender. The next exercise is conjugating these regular verbs, these 4 regular verbs. No stem changes. In the final, it's going to be the same. I am going to separate stem changing verbs from verbs that have no stem changes, and I'm going to tell you which ones are stem changing and what type of stem change they have. So this should be fairly easy as long as you remember the basic procedure. So let's start by doing these 4 verbs that have no stem changes. Comer, I get rid of the ending, right? I get rid of the E and the R. I'm left with com. I'm actually going to do it like that, right? I'm going to put com everywhere, right? Com. And then I'm going to add the endings. What endings do I add? The er endings, right? Because it's comer, right? So the er endings are o, es, e, hemos, en. Como, comes, come, comemos, comen, comen. That's the correct conjugation of comer, which means to eat. Let's do the next one. Estudiar, right? Again, I get rid of the R and the A, and I have estudi. That is my stem, right? Since this is not a stem changing verb, I write the same thing everywhere, right? And now I add the endings, sorry. What endings do I add? The ar endings, right? So the ar endings are o, as, a, amos, an. And that is my conjugation. Estudio, estudias, estudia, estudiamos, estudian, estudian. Estudiar, of course, means to study. Mandar, same procedure. Get rid of the R, get rid of the A. Since it's not a stem changing verb, the stem is mand and it stays the same everywhere. Mand, right? Stays the same everywhere. And then what endings do I add? The ar endings, right? Which are o, as, a, amos, an. And there you have the conjugation. Mando, mandas, manda, mandamos, mandan, mandan. Mandar means both to send and to rule, right? Curiously enough, it's a peculiar Spanish verb in terms of meaning, but in terms of conjugation, it's fairly simple. One last regular verb with no changes in its stem, escribir, which means to write, right? I get rid of the R and the I, right? And I have my stem, escrib. It's, oops, sorry, that's the autocorrector there. Escrib, right? It's gonna be annoying. Escrib. but I have to write that everywhere, right? Because it's, sorry, it wants to correct it for some reason, right? But that's my stem, escribe, right? After I get rid of the R and the I. And then I need to add some endings. What endings do I need to add here? The ir endings, right? Because it ends in IR. So the ir endings are O, es, e, imos, en, en. Escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, escriben, escriben. Good. Those are regular verbs. Remember, all questions from in the final are coming directly from this review, so I'm going to give you one or two of these very same verbs in the exam. Now we move on to the stem changing ones, right? Notice that I'm telling you what group they belong to, right? This is going to be exactly the same in the final. I'm going to tell you what group they belong to. So it should be fairly easy, right? Let's start with perder. It's telling me that it is an E to IE stem changing verb, right? So let's apply the procedure we learned. First, we get rid of the ending, so we get rid of the E and the R. We have perd, that would be our stem, right? But this is not correct because this is an E to IE stem changing verb. The E in the stem needs to change to IE. So I'm going to make those changes, right? IE instead of E, but there's one place where I don't make the change, right here, right? Remember, nosotros, we don't make changes here with stem changing verbs. We make the changes everywhere else, right? So there we have what happens to the stem. It changes from E to IE everywhere except for the nosotros form. And then what endings do I add? The er endings, right? What are the er endings? O is e, hemos, en. And that is the conjugation of perder. Pierdo, pierdes, pierde, perdemos, pierden, pierden. Perder means to lose. Okay? Another stem changing verb, poder. It means to be able to, okay? And it's an O to UE stem changing verb. So we get rid of the last two letters and we're left with pod, right? Of course, you don't really need to do this thing where you write the stem and then you make the changes, right? You can do that in your own head, right? But I want to show you the procedure happening, right? In order to make this review easier. So pod would be our stem, but we need to apply the changes. Wherever there's an O, we change it for a UE, except for the nosotros form right here. I don't want to make the change because that's the rule. I change everywhere, and now what endings do I add? The er endings, the same ones I just added in the other one. So it's O, is e, hemos, en. That is the conjugation of poder. Yo puedo, tú puedes, él puede. Nosotros podemos, ustedes pueden, ellos pueden. Right? One more stem changing verb. This one is an E to IE stem changing verb, despertar. So we get rid of the R and the A. We have despert. That is our, despert. That is our stem. And now I need to make the changes to the stem. We said E to IE, so I take this E and I change it to IE everywhere except for the nosotros form. I don't make that change here. Okay, and now I add the endings. What endings? The ar endings because it's despertar. So the ar endings are o, as a, amos, an. Despierto, despiertas, despierta, despertamos, despiertan, despiertan. That is the conjugation of despertar, which means to wake up. one last stem changing verb, pedir, right? That means to ask for or to request. It's an EY stem changing verb. First step, get rid of the last two letters. Get rid of the R and the I. What we're left with is ped. That's our stem. But I have to make the changes. Change the E for an I. Change the E for an I. Everywhere except here. The nosotros form does not change. Right? There we have the stem with the changes. Now we add some endings. What endings do we add? The ir endings, right? Because it's pedir. The ir endings are o, es, imos, en. That's the conjugation of pedir. Yo pido, tú pides, él pide. Nosotros pedimos, ustedes piden, ellos piden. Okay? That is it in regards to stem changing verbs. We do have some reflexive verbs though. Notice that I'm telling you no stem changes on these reflexive verbs, so the same thing is going to happen in the final. I decided against giving you reflexive verbs that are also stem changing. I did not want to confuse you. So the only place where you will find stem changing verbs will be the section actually dedicated to those. No stem changing verbs in the reflexive section, right? So I would advise you to start here with the reflexive pronouns. Remember, that's what differentiates these from other types of verbs, right? You need to use the reflexive pronouns before the verb, right? So what are the reflexive pronouns? They are me, te, se, nos, se, right? And those are actually present in all reflexive verbs. So I'm going to write them everywhere. Me, te, se, nos, se. Same thing here. Me, te, se, nos, se. And the same thing here. For yo, the pronoun is me. For él, and, for tú, it's te. For él and ella, it's se. For nosotros, it's nos. For ustedes, it's se. And again, for ellos, it's se. So those are the reflexive pronouns. And now we can proceed to conjugating the verbs. The verb here is lavarse. Get rid of 4 letters because it's reflexive, right? You get rid of the SE and then you get rid of the other 2 letters. So what we're left with is lav. Lav, 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 right? And then I add what endings? It's lavarse, so I add the ar endings. Lav, lavas, lava, lavamos, lavan, lavan. That's the right conjugation of lavarse. Yo me lavo, tú te lavas, él se lava. Nosotros nos lavamos, ustedes se lavan, ellos se lavan. Lavarse means to wash oneself. Sobarse. Get rid of 4 letters. We're left with sob, right? And we add the ar endings. O, ad, a, amos, an. That's the conjugation of sobarse. Now for amarse, to love oneself, right? We get rid of 4 letters because this is reflexive. We're left with That is our stem. Okay, and then I add what endings? The ar endings. Amarse, right? So o, as a, amos, an, right? Yo me amo means I love myself. A very important thing to do, right? You have to love yourself, appreciate yourself. Now, deberse, which means to owe oneself something, right? Again, get rid of 4 letters because it's a reflexive, so we're left with deb. That is our stem. And now we add what endings? The verse. We add the er endings. O, es, hemos, en. Okay? So again, there will be no stem changing verbs in the reflexive section, right? Just regular verbs like these. In fact, a couple of these very verbs that you see here. So that should be easy. Right? This is not all, but we're very, very close to the end, right? We also have to choose the right meaning for each of these expressions with the verb tener. I hope you remember those. We did them with some images, right? So, yo tengo frío. What does that mean? I am hungry, I am tired, or I am cold. Well, frío means cold, so this means I am cold. How about yo tengo hambre? Tired, in a hurry, or hungry? Hungry, right? How about yo tengo sueño? That means to be tired or to be sleepy, right? And then yo tengo calor, it means thirsty, hot, or uncomfortable. It means I am hot. Yo tengo calor, I am hot, right? Again, not in the sense of sexiness, just in the sense of temperature, right? And then the final set of questions is very simple. How do you say these in Spanish, right? So family vocab. How do you say father? Padre. How do you say mother? Madre. How do you say grandfather? Abuelo. And grandmother? Well, it's the feminine version, abuela. How about uncle? Tío, right? Aunt, the feminine version, tía. Son, hijo. Daughter, the feminine version, hija. Brother, it's hermano. And sister is the feminine version of this, hermana. This is all. So again, all the questions that you'll find in the final will come directly from this review. So thank you for watching it. I am pretty sure that it's going to be extremely useful for you. Okay? Gracias, muchachos. Hasta luego.